Hello traders, Rich here, and here's a quick but detailed update on US500. As usual, if you guys like video analysis, let me know in the comments or simply leave a like. So let's get started. As we clearly see, US500 was overall bullish, making higher lows and higher highs. However, the bears took over after breaking below this low. We had a classic retest and we traded lower. So now the momentum is shifted from bullish to bearish. However, we are currently sitting around a strong demand zone as we had an aggressive movement upward from it. So until the bears break below this area, the bulls can still kick in from here and trade higher. However, every bullish movement now would be just a correction, because when you are overall bearish, every bullish movement would be a correction, and the bearish movement would be pushing, or the impulse would be pushing in the direction of the trend. We can see it even better from daily time frame. We were bullish previously, then price broke below this low, below the trend line, and so on. So we are currently bearish, trading inside this falling broadening wedge. Here's our impulse, correction, impulse, and we are currently waiting for the boost to take over for the correction movement to start. Of course, later on we'll be looking for sell setups around the upper band, which would be a trend following sell setup. But let's take it step by step, right? Around the demand zone, the bulls can still kick in, but no matter how strong a support or a demand is, it can still be broken downward. So we don't buy blindly. We always wait for extra confirmation. And as per my trading style, I always zoom into lower time frames. As we can see, we've got like multiple movements, then the bulls took over by breaking above the high. We've got multiple movements downward. Now this is our last major high, which we can even see better from H4 time frame. So we can see that the bears took over here after retesting this like previous low, which we saw from weekly time frame, right? So that's how like you surf, or you go from higher time frame to lower time frame and so on. So that's our high, broken upward, became a potential short-term support, then broken downward, which is also the last high. Then we had a classic retest, which we saw here from H4 time frame. Of course, our extra confirmation was after the bears broke below this low, right? So we had a big impulse movement, made a low, broke it downward, and now the bearish movement started also from a short-term perspective, which is the next impulse movement lower. So now after price trades higher, if we have a similar pattern, then we'll be expecting a drop lower after breaking below the low. Anyway, let's take it step by step. Now we are bearish, making low lows and lower highs. So for the boost to take over, for the correction movement to start from here to here, we'll need to see a break above the previous high, which is around this area. We've got like a double bottom or an inverse head and shoulders pattern forming. We can't really know for now, so we might have this. It would be an inverse head and shoulders, right? And we also have one on H1, but like I don't want to zoom in for now to lower time frames, because we've got this major last last high from higher time frame from H4. But we can apply the same logic on lower time frames. If we drop lower, you can look for any bullish reversal setup from H4. For the boost to take over, we still need to see a break above this area here. So I'll mark it as usual for those who know me. So bulls take over for the correction movement to start, which is simply like a bullish trend on lower time frame, but a correction on a higher time frame before we speculate this bearish movement, unless of course we have an aggressive breakup of it and so on. Meanwhile, until the bulls take over from medium-term perspective by breaking above this high, we would be overall bearish, and we can still trade lower from here and lower by breaking below the demand. In this case, the bears would remain in control, would take over again, like for an overextended impulse movement. Before we continue, I want to tell you about Tickmill. Tickmill is established in 2014 and is one of the leading Forex and CFD brokers with registered users from more than 200 different countries. Tickmill is a no-dealing desk and ECN broker regulated in many countries like the UK, Cyprus, and recently in South Africa. With Tickmill, you can trade a wide range of instruments, starting from Forex to indices, commodities, and even crypto. Most importantly, with very low spreads and trading fees. If you don't have an account yet, make sure to create one using my referral link in the description below to benefit from 5% discounts on your trading fees. And let's continue. As we clearly see, EURCAD has been overall bearish after breaking below this low and now started to make lower lows and lower highs, right? So we are overall bearish and we'll be waiting for the correction to be about to end to catch what? the next impulse movement downward. Just like previously, correction, looking for sell setups, correction, looking for sell setups, and so on. That's why we are currently in this correction phase just like previously, and we are looking for sell setups. And we are starting to look for sell setups starting from now, because we are around a resistance zone. If you zoom out, we know that this zone has been acting as a support and resistance for quite some time. Resistance here, turn to support, support again, broken downward, now resistance, and broken upward, now acting as support, finally broken downward, now it's acting as a resistance. That's why we are looking for the stop starting from here. Of course, unless this resistance is broken upward, then it would become support, and the movement that the upper bound would be expected, it would be an overextended correction, just like previously, broke above the previous high, overextended correction, over the previous high, this correction before we drop lower. These are the two possible scenarios, but we are looking for such a top starting from here because we have a resistance, knowing that we can still break it upward, and then we'll be looking for the stops around this area, which is a non-horizontal resistance zone. Now, if you zoom into daily time frame, we can see that lately price has been respecting this resistance, forming like a short-term resistance as well. So as long as price is trading below it, we'll be looking for such setups. For example, I've been looking for such setups previously around this area for those who watched my previous analysis. Of course, as mentioned from daily, unless this resistance is broken upward, which would mean a break above this entire area, the previous major highs, then it would become a support. We'll be looking for buy stops here, and then sell setups, which would be a trend following setup from weekly time frame. But let's take it step by step, right? Around the resistance, looking for sell setups. If we zoom into M30 time frame, which is usually my trigger time frame, M30 and H1, we can see that previously price has been respecting the previous highs and lows, so has been trading higher, over the previous low, traded lower, above the previous high, traded higher, lower, higher, and so on. And previously I was looking for sell setups around this area to catch this impulse movement downward, and previously the bulls took over after like rejecting this demand zone, traded higher, and so on. So for now, we're applying the same logic. So we're waiting just like previously, for example, a new swing low to form, then sell on spike downward, or of course, like it might be a double top, head and shoulders, whatever line of confirmation you usually go for, or from from a long-term perspective, from H1, we can see it even better. We've got this trend line, but let's stick to M30 because we already got our zones here. So, for example, we'll be waiting for a new swing to form around the lower trend line to consider it like valid, and then we'll be selling on spike downward. As mentioned, we've got two possible scenarios. This is the first one, if we get a new swing low here, or we might have this dive before we form the new swing low, then we'll be selling on spike downward. Of course, when the sell is activated, the stop loss would be just above the previous swing high, and we target a 1 to 2 risk to reward ratio, which usually would be around the lower band. So it depends on where the entry would be, where the last swing would be, right? And I don't really know for now because it didn't happen yet. And we target 1 to 2 risk to reward ratio to have an edge over the market from a risk management perspective, which, as mentioned, would be around the lows around this area. Meanwhile, until the sellers take over and the sell is activated, EURCAD can still trade higher and higher, dive inside this resistance just like previously before trading lower, or even break it upward for it to become support. In this case, we'll be looking for buys here and sell setups around the upper band. Best of luck, and I'll see you on the next one.